Well, I got to say these were a hell of a lot funner when the 49ers were on a 5-game win streak. Funner's not even a word, but I'm going to use it because I feel like I deserve to. David has his drink. I wish I had one, although I'm not much of a drinker. I feel like I could use one right about now. David is much smarter than I am, clearly. This is getting a bit out of control. There's so much to talk about, and we're going to talk about it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's a post-game show, yet another somber one, 3 weeks in a row. And what makes this worse, David, is the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith just led a game-winning touchdown drive against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
The 49ers aren't even first in their own division anymore. After 5 weeks, who would have predicted that 3 weeks later, the 49ers wouldn't even be first in their own division? Yet, here we are, David. Here we frickin' are. How are you other than this horrible game?
Well, I think before we get into it, I don't usually, but Steph Sanchez just tweeted out, not to be dramatic, but John Lynch needs to decide if this team is even worth mortgaging more draft picks for. And honestly, that is a very sad state of affairs. That's how I answer your question. And I don't think any of us had actually got to that point. We've been talking about them being active at the trade deadline. I still think they're obviously going to be active at the deadline. But boy, I think where I'm at is that this team is not that good. Like this team has talent. This team can score points and move the ball down the field, but they turn the ball over lately. They can't play defense at all. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's awful. I know you guys in the chat are going absolutely crazy. Absolutely disgusting performance, not looking like a playoff team. Trade for that, blah, blah, blah. My gosh, you guys are not happy. Hey, Basketball Can Niner fan, new member, appreciate you. All day, every day, Kim says, Brock, franchise my brown butt. That's a visual I didn't want to get to today. Jason Lutz says, can't play offense or defense, but we punt like we're world champs. Yeah, Mitch Wishnowsky for president of the team. Apparently, he's pretty dang good. Okay, let's talk about the defensive performance first before we get into Brock Purdy, which we know that everybody wants to talk about that, I'm sure. But defense, okay. I tweeted out after the first drive that if this continues, I don't believe that Wilkes will be here through the bye week. And people were very angry about that tweet. Defense in the first half gave up 20 and 23 passing from Joe Burrow. They gave up over 7 yards per carry, yet they had a timely sack that forced them to miss a field goal and then a timely forced turnover. But ultimately, the defense was, there was nothing that they could do. They couldn't stop the Bengals from doing anything. The Bengals really hurt themselves. And then when you get to the second half, actually did what they've been doing all season, which is playing much better in the second half. Really, kind of gave up 3 points there until the very, very end. And then you had the interception by Purdy, which led to a touchdown from Chase. And then really the floodgates kind of opened up from there. What do you think of this defense, and does Wilkes make it out of the bye week?
So just to put this into context, this defense today gave up 29 first downs.
Mm-hmm.
When you're giving up almost 30 first downs, people look at yards per play too much. Like that just showed it didn't matter. The Bengals could manufacture plays. And the bottom line is, can you remember a single play where the Bengals had a fluky offensive, like a fluky big play that gained them yards? Can you remember a single one? Because I'm looking at my notes and I don't see anything. I don't see anything where like, oh my God, that guy just mossed him. That's a great play. Kudos to Cincinnati. They got lucky, or it was just a methodical gashing. And guys, this has happened since the second half in Cleveland. It happened all week. I had all 22 angles of the Vikings game, sitting 14 rows up from the end zone. It was miserable last week, and it was actually worse today. And that to me is what all due respect to Steve Wilkes, we know that we want to blame players. Like, hey, I'm a teacher, you're a coach, right? But also as teachers and coaches, if there's not performance on the field, like, or in the classroom, whatever have you, you have to reflect on what you're doing. And right now, we do know there's talent on that side of the ball, and the bills ain't being paid. And so, if this team, who just gave John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, how many years extension was it? I don't even know anymore, right? It was good times, right? It's another dinner at Jed York's, and everybody's all happy. I'm telling you right now, they're going to have to at least consider making a seismic change over the bye week, because I honestly don't think Steve Wilkes, I think he's in it over his head with his team. I think the players continue to play undisciplined. And I also think that something we could talk about, that the 49ers culture is kind of a country club culture. I don't know if this 49ers team, like Fred Warner said last week about the grimy games, this wasn't even a grimy game. It just didn't even get grimy. It was just embarrassing.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. And the defense, I mean, like I said, it was awful in the first half. They had a couple of plays that ended up being timely and worked in their favor and kept it close. Second half was really good until the final half of the fourth quarter there, but this defense isn't getting the job done. I think that I do think that Wilkes doesn't make it out of the bye week. I don't think he makes it out of the bye week. They lost 3 straight games. And here's the other thing. There's going to be a scapegoat. It's going to be Wilkes, whether you believe it should be or not. And if that's the case, these are not things that Super Bowl winning teams have happen midseason, regardless of what you want to think. Like, these are not things that happen. If you fire a coach midseason, a coordinator midseason, that is not ideal. That is not Super Bowl winning things. Like, I think it's happened maybe one time that I can think of, and that was it maybe the Ravens team, their offensive coordinator, the year they beat us in the Super Bowl? I think it happened to them, but it doesn't happen very often. So either way, no matter how you want to split it, like, it's not a good thing if Wilkes does get fired.
No. And I think that right now you're going to come up to the bye week. You're going into Jacksonville, and Jacksonville's kind of still trying to find out exactly who they are and click on that offense. But all being said, I can't even check the record. I know they beat Pittsburgh today. I think, are they 5-3, 6-2? They're in a good spot. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, they beat Pittsburgh. Yeah, they're a good-looking team too.
They're a good-looking team. You're going across. I know you got the bye week. I don't know what they plan on doing, but you go into Jacksonville, you come back across the coast to play the Bucs, and then on a short week back in Seattle. Then you're going to Philly. Then you're hosting Seattle, who are the division leaders, by the way. Then you think you have a reprieve in Arizona, which I don't even know at this point, because the Niners defense can stop absolutely nobody.
And Kyler may be playing by then.
Exactly. We don't know. I mean, this team, and then all of a sudden, you go home to play Baltimore Ravens, and then go back across the country to play the Commanders, which all of a sudden are looking like a really tough out. The Eagles have struggled mightily, but eked out the grimy game, right? And then you got the Rams. I'm just saying, like, at the beginning of the year, my prediction was best case 12-5, most likely 11-6, and worst case 9-8, accounting for injuries. Right now, I don't feel great about my likely 11-5 or 11-6. And that's scary. And I think that they've got to solve some problems pretty quick, or they're going to be playing on the road in the playoffs every game.
Yeah, if they make it. For sure. Is this the victory lap you're trying to make right now? That's a real interesting stance. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, what does this even mean? And thank you for being an anonymous account. It's big time. It doesn't make, there's nothing that makes sense about it. It's actually, you're proving his point. And I'm not saying that, like, are we
the worst timing to make this point, bud? Like, literally the worst timing that you could choose to make this point is right now. The real Jake.
And the funny thing is that Jesse and I weren't even going to bring up, like, we haven't even talked, like, Jesse and I text all the time. We don't talk about Trey Lance. Honestly, in our text message, we never talk about Trey.
Text.
I could go look at my text message, just like, show, like, I don't talk. Like, why is it that you would think this moment where Brock Purdy is an absolute arsonist
Unbelievable.
You know what? I'm gonna put more wine in my glass for that one.
Absolutely unbelievable. All right, let's talk about this offense. Let's try to talk about this offense around Brock Purdy for a minute,
Sure.
because it is not. Here's the thing. Brock Purdy has not looked good really for 3 straight weeks. Okay. And he's had good moments, really good moments, actually, but he hasn't looked good for a whole game for 3 straight weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it is not all Brock Purdy. It's just not all Brock Purdy.
Nope.
You've got an offense that seemingly can't score more than 17. 3 weeks in a row? 17, 17, 17. After scoring 30 plus for however many games in a row, this team's always scoring 30. Now they can't score more than 17. As much as we talk about this defense, David, the offense is just as much to blame. The defense could give up 18 points a game for the last 3 weeks, and they still would have lost all 3 of those games. They have to figure out how to put up more points. You have CMC, you have Ayuk, you have Kittle, you have Kyle Shanahan. 17 points 3 weeks in a row, and a couple of those are against defenses that aren't that great.
I don't know. By the way, on that last 40, did they call that last turnover by Brock Purdy a fumble? I thought he threw a pick.
I don't know.
I honestly, you're right. And so I'm 100% going to tell you right now, the defense 100% is going to get a lashing from me in this. Like this is not
well, and they should. But my point is that the offense deserves just as big of one.
100%. So here's the thing: is the Niners move the ball all day long against the Bengals. All right, the Niners move the ball against the Minnesota Vikings, right? And yet you've put yourself into situations where you can't cash in. I mean, when we walk back to, I had people talk about like Jermaine Pratt mix that I think it was Jermaine Pratt, who's really not that good, who's sitting here like Brock Purdy just soft tosses a ball 2 feet in front of him. Right here's one inside the 10, absolutely killer. The second interception, staring down a linebacker, staring him down like a la Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, and then the third one, again, minimal pressure, trying to make something happen like the Vikings game. That's what I was told there, but it wasn't really. Like, you still could make things happen without turning the ball over, and it wasn't a Hail Mary. This is, so people don't want to, our fan base largely, and I'm here to do this. People don't want this conversation. It hurts to have this conversation. Let me tell you why. Because if Brock Purdy ain't it, what options do the 49ers actually have? Because look, Sam Darnold ain't it either, guys. I think Sam Darnold could come in. Do you think Sam Darnold will come in today and turn the ball over 3 times for sure? Probably, maybe not. I don't know. Couldn't have been a hell of a lot worse.
He's so up and down. I really
don't.
No.
And I am never going to advocate. I would much rather see Brock Purdy than Sam. 100%. I effusively praise Brock Purdy throughout the game. And here's the thing, though. You could play relatively well, but then when you burn the house down, it doesn't matter that you made some plays with your legs. It doesn't matter that you kept some drives alive. It just doesn't. And as Matt McCown said here, those turnover-worthy plays, Brock Purdy's been bottom 5 of starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And guess what? After today, I guarantee you he's bottom 2 or 3. That does not cut it in the NFL. And so you're right, Jesse. If the defense isn't going to be playing, but like you said, the Niners have scored what? Has it been 17, 17, and what?
17, 17, and 17, right?
17.
Didn't they score 17 again today?
They scored 17 in Cleveland.
Yeah, 19-17 they lost. Yeah.
So there it is. 3 times in a row. Like, look, like you said, the Niners defense should be able to give up 20 points once in a while and win a game. And I'm not taking them off the hook. We're going to talk about them later. But Purdy and the offense, like, gentlemen, I tweeted out at the end of the last game. I said, Brock Purdy might not be it. I didn't say Brock Purdy is garbage, dog water. Can't believe they ever picked him with 262, blah, 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 blah. I said, Brock Purdy might not be it. After today, still feel the same way. And at this point, I know guys can grow. I know, but I'm still seeing people say, hey, he's virtually a rookie. No. When you're an MVP candidate, you're no longer virtually a rookie. Right? Draft status doesn't matter. And right now, we've got a quarterback who can make plays with his legs. But when things get tight, and you got to count on him, he burns the house down.
Listen, bud, here's the thing. Like, I have call-in shows. You can call in anytime. We can have a conversation. I hate like going full like in on anybody, but when you make crazy comments like that, it's like, bro, pick and choose the time. Like the first 5 weeks would have been the time to like get in here and like call your shot. Not now. Now is not the time. And Sea Thrower here says, Kirk Cousins is out with an Achilles. Like that was the actual answer. Although I don't at all like that he's turned it into like a funny situation. Like, I don't know what's funny about serious injuries, but the point is that Kirk Cousins is out for the year, likely with the torn Achilles. That was actually a last ditch effort that the 49ers could have made to potentially win a Super Bowl this year. If assuming that Purdy can't turn it around, because I don't have any trust in Darnold either. So,
okay. And we don't need to look at these moronic comments. Like, I'm sorry, but like,
no, I'm trying to take the first half, the Cousins part, him being done for the year. Like, let's talk about it from that standpoint.
Well, yeah,
let's
but this,
just, you know what I mean?
What was going on here? Like,
I don't know.
I
don't know, bro.
Do we? Okay, guys, this is let's just address, like, no, we're not. I love Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins actually was playing incredibly well today. He played well last week as well. He's a really good quarterback. And yeah, no, I wouldn't be pining for Kirk Cousins after he completely ruptured his Achilles tendon. If he didn't get injured today, and you told me that you'd rather see what Brock Purdy has been playing like the last 3 weeks instead of Kirk Cousins, you're either lying or you're insane.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree, man. I completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. All right. Let's get to some of these super chats real quick. Elite Archer says Kyle is the common denominator, but hey, he got that extension. What do you think about this? I mean, I feel like there's been 2 people that have been completely off limits from criticism when it comes to the 49ers. It's been Brock Purdy and it's been Kyle Shanahan. Now, I'm more apt to blame Kyle Shanahan because, again, he's the one that made the decision for a 3rd time. He's now told us 3 times he has a franchise quarterback, and it looks like he might be 0 for 3 on this whole prediction thing. People get mad when we're off on one quarterback, but they don't want to hold Kyle accountable for being wrong and being 0 for 3. What do you think with this whole thing? I mean, he is the common denominator at this point,
I think that, listen,
hold on. We can be mad at Purdy. We can be mad at Steve Wilkes. But the bottom line is those 2 people are in place because of who? One, Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and look, there's things that we like. I think at this point, we got 2 weeks, and this is post game. But I'm glad somebody brought Trey Lance up, and I think this is the reason why. Is that when you made this decision to say that Brock Purdy is the real deal, and dude, I think that Brock had some good plays today that moved the ball. Like we both thought in the first half that he was playing well again within this team.
We were texting each other all game at how good he looked until it didn't. Second week in a row, we've had the same basic message thread. Actually,
3rd week in a row. Third week, it was never good.
The 3rd week it wasn't good, and then he had the final drive or whatever. But the last 2 weeks, it was like it looked good, and then it didn't. And like I said, our texts were almost identical for 2 weeks in a row during mid game.
They've played 8 games, and he's had 4 where he has not played well at all.
Yeah,
like as a composite, like people don't really avoid did I get lambasted. So I think this idea that Kyle being the common denominator, I love Kyle, and I said this in August. You make this call, and this doesn't work. There is nobody to blame. And I said, you better win it this year and or next year. And right now, winning it this year, I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm never going to sit here and be like speaking complete absolutes.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the team that we've seen the last 3 weeks, and you think that team has a chance. Now, granted, is there a lot of parity in the NFL? Yeah. I don't even know what happened to the Chiefs against the Broncos today. The Broncos have been one of the worst teams in the NFL, and the Chiefs struggled. Any given Sunday, any given Monday night, whatever it is, you can get the best of it. But right now, the 49ers aren't stopping anybody. And I think that with Kyle making this decision and the quarterback turning the ball over and looking like he's lacking confidence. If this doesn't work out, this is what I said at the beginning of the show. The reason people are afraid to have this conversation is because the opportunities to bring in anybody else at quarterback are pretty bleak. The only thing going for the 49ers is that Brock Purdy costs nothing. They can absolutely move on from him with no financial hit whatsoever. The question is, though, who's it going to be? Kirk Cousins coming off of an Achilles injury?
I'll say that Kirk Cousins got a hell of a lot cheaper.
Oh yeah. Is it going to be? But you know what I'm saying? Like,
I agree. I agree with you. It's not ideal. It's not ideal.
He's the only veteran that makes sense. He really is. Like he really
Jimmy
is.
G's a free agent after this year.
I'm going to go run in traffic. I mean, the idea that I just think in the rookie class, all of a sudden, what you're going to go back to a rookie? No. You're just going to spin this out. But guess what's happening? The roster's getting older. The defense, who was supposed to be the stalwarts of the team, are playing like Big 12 football teams. I grew up an Iowa State fan. I watch Big 12 football all the time. This defense looks worse than Big 12 football. Okay. I don't know where the Niners go from here. Trent Williams out again this week. He's been injured. I think you tweeted this out. Somebody else did. This is what, 8th straight year where he's missed at least 2 consecutive games.
At least 2 games in a season. Yeah,
that's a lot. And I get it. Offensive line, there's a lot of attrition. Defensive line, there's a lot. I mean, it's tough. Yeah. But he's old. He's old.
Yeah.
We don't know what this roster looks like. So the fact that if you get it wrong this year.
Well, and unfortunately, there's so much time in the offseason to talk about these things, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But trying to foreshadow, like, there's so many things that they've done wrong potentially if this team needs to be headed for a rebuild. I don't want to get to that point yet. They're still 5-3. I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs. They have a bye week. They're going to get Debo and Trent back. We'll see what happens at the trade deadline. I'm not going to completely write them off now. It just, in this moment, it doesn't feel good. I do want to say this about Brock Purdy, though, and people got so mad at me for making these comments back in the day. But Brock Purdy did this in college. This is not new. Brock Purdy had a lot of what the F moments in college. And I brought this up very early when he was playing well. I said he has a little bit of Jimmy Garoppolo in the standpoint that he will throw the what the F ball. And he did it in college quite a bit. Then he got to the NFL. Last year, for the most part, it was pretty good. Although the turnover-worthy play percentage was higher than, what you would like. But we're like, it's a rookie. He'll be fine. We'll see what happens. Then we got into this offseason, and we talked about the interceptions all through training camp. And, Grant and others got cooked essentially for 5 weeks because those interceptions were not happening. It was like, oh, remember the training camp interception thing? Like the victory lapping that was happening was crazy. Yeah. And now you're seeing it again. And really the turnover-worthy plays through 5 weeks were high as well. They just weren't becoming turnovers. And now you're starting to see it again. I mean, when you've got a sample size of being this guy in college, being this guy last year, regardless of whether the turnovers happened or not, doing it in training camp and then doing it this year, at some point that might be who he is. Like, he's got a long track record of what the F moments and poor decision making. And unfortunately for Purdy, he doesn't have the physical capabilities to overcome that. When Josh Allen throws an interception every game, he's also following it up with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, that's the difference.
Yeah. And like you said, we've been saying we want this to be the MVP moment. I thought he had kept the team in it before, but when you just said you can't be the arsonist and the fireman. You can't be the arsonist and the fireman and get credit. You can't keep getting credit. Playing quarterback is a composite. It's not a sum of its parts, right? It's like it is those clutch give me those moments that you need a quarterback to put them on their back. I've seen this. The funny thing about the way that we talk objectively about Purdy is that somebody today said, well, Joe Burrow only had 4 incompletions. And so why are you blaming? I said, guys, this has nothing to do with, like, yes, Joe Burrow playing well does not absolve Brock Purdy from not. And I think that what I'm concerned about is the same things that you saw at Iowa State. The same reason why Brock Purdy regressed from being a fringe late first round, early second round player after his sophomore year, all the way to UDFA, Mr. Irrelevant, is exactly what you're seeing right now. Particularly the play to Jermaine Pratt, the soft toss. I saw so much of that his senior year at Iowa State. Just like plays where you're thinking, Brock, you're so talented, you're composed, you're confident. Why on earth would you make a play like that? And I think that for a long time we thought this is the Jimmy Garoppolo world. Only Jimmy Garoppolo does that. Well, that's not true right now. And I also think that last week there was people that were very convinced that he was concussed. I'm absolutely 100% not convinced that that was the case. I really do not think that. I don't think it was the case. I think what you saw last week, what you saw in Cleveland, what you saw here is just who Brock Purdy is right now. And he's got to figure it out. He's got to figure it out, or else this team is 9-8, his best case scenario.
Well, let me clarify. I think what you're saying is, yes, he was concussed, but that is not the reason why those plays happen. Is that what you're saying?
Look, yes, I'm saying that.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Listen. I had to clarify. Yeah. I had to clarify because people will run with that. So
they can run with it, and they can. This is the thing. Player getting concussion symptoms after the game. That was it'd be the first quarterback in the NFL in the last, I think, year and a half, 2 years to actually clear on a short week. Very clear that what he suffered was absolutely nowhere near the degree that other people have suffered in the concussion protocol. It's clear. Okay. Not slandering Birdie on that regard. The bottom line is it's possible, guys, like even after the concussion, he made a good play. That's in the past. I'm just saying, like, you can't sit here and watch Cleveland and say, oh, it was raining. Oh, but he had a quarterback sneak and kind of hit his head, but he's cleared in 4 days. Oh, well, Joe Burrow only made what is it? Like what is it? And so I think that Brock is a good kid. I think he's confident. I think he will rebound. But right now, like you said, Jesse, the physical limitations. Look at the near interception that he had under pressure. I think it was on the outside. I want to say Ayuk was on the that was arm strength. There was pressure, but as I think Marco said, it took a bailout throw. He's going off his back foot. He does not have the arm strength to make those throws. And those are the kind of things that if that cornerback doesn't fall down and bite on that route, that's a pick six, right? The other one, tipped balls. Oh, it was tipped. Yeah, it was tipped to a linebacker, like in the middle of the field. There, he had at least 5 turnover worthy plays today. And I guess the box score is calling the last interception a fumble, which I think it's documented wrong in the box score. I think they're going to have to correct it. I had him as three interceptions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, it's 3 turnovers. So it's fumble, interception, whatever. It's 3 turnovers at inopportune times. Okay. Matthew Sanders says abject failure. Bosa out there making Parag look right about every penny pinching thing he ever did. Fire Wilkes. Ward is burnt toast. Sell it all. He's saying do a rebuild. Matt says my overreaction is we need to be sellers, not buyers at the deadline. Sorry, just pissed. Let me have this. All right, I'll let you have it, man. Cryptic says at this point, will we win another game? I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna read the rest. But when you were going through that schedule, one thing that we cannot do anymore as 49er fans is look at any game and say that's a for sure win. We are not there anymore. We are not able to look at any bad team that is on this schedule and say that the 49ers are absolutely going to win X game against bad team until they prove that they can start to do that again. So I agree with that. Did the Bengals even punt? Purdy plays good till the fourth quarter and falls apart. Also, can we not get over 20 points? We can't get over 17, Cryptic. That's 3 weeks in a row. Clone Trooper says we really got rid of Trey for this win now team. Shaking my head. Defense and Purdy played poorly today. RS says I'm just here to blame Wilkes for the offense not putting up more than 19 points the past 3 weeks. That's a very, very good point. Greenlaw, give me an unsportsmanlike flag. Brother Bob says, gotta goatscape someone. I like that. Goatscape. Someone. Wilkes it is, but man, Brock Purdy. Yeah, I hear you. Theron says, would Purdy get more grace if he started mediocre instead? Who knows what he'll be, but people are tossing him out for finally making rookie mistakes. Purdy would get more grace if the 49ers didn't anoint him the franchise quarterback after 7 starts, and if every single person in here didn't come in on their high horse month after month, week after week, and tell me and other people, oh, if you're not willing to crown him now, if you're not willing to say he's top 10 now or top 5 now, it's not Purdy really that anybody's after. It's everybody making crazy comments month after month. And that's what's being attacked right now. Everybody propped him up a lot higher than they should. And I actually had this is a topic this offseason. You can go back and find it where I said he's going to hit a stretch where he struggles. And I believe that everybody's going to lose their mind on Purdy because everybody has propped him up to be something that he's not ready for. I said it months ago.
It's an infantile form of logic that says that basically that you cannot ever praise a person. If you ever praise a person, and I'm not talking about sports. As a teacher, there's a couple different things. If you ever give Purdy any praise, that means that you cannot criticize him.
Yeah.
That means that means if you ever do objectively criticize as much as you objectively praise, then you are a hedger. That you are somebody who will straddle the fence and was kind of, as opposed to just being somebody that actually talks about what's happening objectively in the moment. Mm-hmm. And this is there's a couple different fallacies that are at play there. There's actually too many to count. Like one of them is a Gish Gallop, where you overwhelm your opponent so much with all this other stuff that you lose track of the original topic. And the original topic is this: there were some of us that were not saying that Purdy is garbage, but said, "Hey, let's pump the brakes." There were some of us that said, "I believe in Brock, and I'm not ready to anoint him as the Savior and the Messiah yet." Okay, and heaven forbid any of us have done that. And then when he has a good game or two, but when you see these games, it's crickets. It's crickets. They don't exist.
I had a group of probably 10 or so people that were in here every week talking mad head. I haven't seen them in 3 weeks. Where are they at? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not in here killing Purdy.
No.
Like, it's not all on Purdy. He is a rookie essentially still. He does deserve grace.
Yep.
But y'all were going so crazy, and now you're nowhere. You're gone. It's like your accounts have been burnt. It's wild. Matt says our biggest fear with Darnold is turnovers. Well, okay. Gammon says it's bad when you regret not folding laundry to watch the game instead. Bosa needs a black woman to show him how to hold his.
Yep.
Gammon, come on, man. Wilkes is 110% to blame for the offensive struggles. Yes, he is. He is to blame for that. That's the second comment that's made that. That's good.
$10 for that. Huh?
Warlock says Trevor Lawrence is licking his chops against the 49ers secondary. Also, the Jaguars have a better defensive line. I have no faith in Purdy. I will say this. We've now gotten to a point with Purdy where we were with Jimmy Garoppolo, at least where I was with Jimmy Garoppolo, where when the ball leaves the screen, I am no longer confident that a good decision is being made.
Yep.
And that was the most relieving thing about Brock Purdy up until this 3-week sample size, which is starting to become a trend, where when the ball left the screen, I expected either something exciting to happen or at the very least, like an incomplete pass. There was almost no concern from me. And that was a great feeling because with Jimmy, we did not have that feeling. I am right back to that heart drop. Those two throws where he rolled right and threw him over the middle to Kittle, or one to Kittle, one to CMC for the touchdown after the 2 picks or what have you. My heart stopped on both of them. They ended up being awesome results, but I didn't have any faith that they were going to be good things were going to come from those. That was the first time that I had felt that really with Purdy. Over the last couple of weeks, I started to feel it a little bit. But that was something that we got with Jimmy Garoppolo week in and week out. And I hate that feeling. All day, every day, Kim. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All day, every day, Kim says, blame the O. They're not pulling their weight at all. I don't think either of them are pulling their weight. Miguel says 49ers fans got sold fool's gold once again, but everyone wanted to crown Purdy for beating non-playoff teams. Shaking my head. It was a mistake trading Trey. And see, now these conversations start to happen again for a guy that's been gone all season long because this type of play opens up that conversation. Greenlaw, Brother Bob says the real Jake is on timeout. Matt, he's saying that Matt is right about his comment. 808 Niner says 3 weeks in a row, the D can't stop the run. The The ends don't set the edge and rush too far upfield, leaving huge lanes. Agree. Greenlaw looked lost out there, overrunning plays, and Brock Purdy shows why he was a 7th rounder.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was a lot. And I agree with all of it.
I do too.
Brother Bob says, F it. I will talk about Lance. We traded 3 first rounds and a third for a quarterback just to trade him for a 4th, only to see Brock Purdy throw the worst picks I've seen in the red zone. Somebody was going to talk about it. Shady Luke says, I see people saying fire Wilkes. It's mid-season. Nobody is going to coach the defense better. You can't just upgrade mid-season. Yeah, sometimes they feel like it's addition by subtraction. And I'm telling you, when things aren't going well in an organization and they should be going much better, there's always somebody that gets scapegoated. I agree. I don't necessarily think he should be fired, but I have a feeling it's going to happen during the bye, but we'll see. We'll see. Sean says, book is out. Purdy throws to a spot. Act like you're not going to be there, then show up. It's on tape 2 weeks in a row. I would argue 3 weeks in a row. Brother Bob says, so happy that we extended Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Brilliant move. Jeez, y'all are pissed. Cryptic says, tired of hearing announcers say opponents having near the worst statistical offense, and then the defense is having career days against the Niners. Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is but we should have known though. The whole like the Bengals not having a good offense thing. We knew that it was a lot to do with health. They got healthy over the bye week. We should have known that this offense was going to come out and do some things.
That being said, the Bengals, like I said, this was just, and it doesn't have to be big plays to be a great offense. I like the 49ers are one of those offenses too, right? Joe Burrow, I don't remember any spectacular throws, but you don't have to make spectacular throws to be a really good quarterback. I would say that about Brock Purdy. Like Brock Purdy plays well throughout some games, right? But like there are times though when you have to make those throws, like you're asked not to make the turnovers, and Joe Burrow didn't do that. I would also say that this Bengals defense is not good. They are not good. Like the 49ers moved the ball down the field, but they could not cash in. They had the same thing against the Vikings defense. Brian Flores has that Vikings defense overachieving, but the Niners were having their way with them. So that's why when I look at Kyle Shanahan, I still feel like Kyle Shanahan's the MVP of this offense. And so, however, Kyle Shanahan's making certain decisions that eventually he's going to have to account for. And with a team that has a Super Bowl window, I think for you and I, Jesse, for 49ers fans around the country, around the world, seeing this team that was 5-0, that everybody and their mother had as the number 1 team on their power rankings. Everybody said it was like not even close. Oh my God, it's the 49ers and everybody else. Well, I'll just say this: Justin Herbert's going to be playing tonight, and I'm all week long sort of seeping into my timeline about like the audacity that anybody would consider. I just beg of people to try and be objective about what they see. And right now, if you look at the 49ers team and you look at them as a playoff team that you think really has the chops to consistently make a run, you're probably crazy. Does that mean they can't do it? No. But right now, there is something that's got to change because the schedule does not get easier.
No, definitely not. Theron says, whether Trey or Brock, is it just possible this team is more flawed than we thought? Too much for what's effectively a rookie quarterback. Yes. And that right there is a great point. And again, nobody wanted to hear it. You know, we heard how this team couldn't take on Trey Lance because they're ready now. They can't have a rookie quarterback doing rookie quarterback things.
Why is he a rookie? Why is he effectively a rookie quarterback? Can I ask that question? Why is he effectively a rookie quarterback?
Who?
Brock Purdy.
He's still technically within his first 16 starts. I understand what they're saying. I guess here's what I'm saying. We'll just say young quarterback. Let's replace rookie with young, okay?
Okay.
Either way, people just assume that Purdy would come in and always play like a 10-year vet who's established in this league and would be good enough to go out and win shootouts with good quarterbacks if it ever came down to that. And I think that was always a flawed thought. It was always a flawed thought. And it's not fair to Brock. It's not fair that this whole team is trying to rely on him and that it's not like there were plays throughout that game, Kittle dropping a pass or Ayuk dropping a pass or whatever. It's like if you're going to go out there with a quarterback that's as young as Brock, who you have to expect to make mistakes, then everybody else around him that is supposed to be an elite player that is getting paid, they have to make all the plays. Every time they have a chance, they have to make the play. They can't have those lapses where they also aren't making plays. Like you have to be able to pick up a young quarterback when it's not going great sometimes. And right now, that's not happening either. Really, everybody is to blame. And Gregory says, hey, the offense needs to do better and Purdy needs to do better, but the defense is a bigger problem. It's all a problem. The whole team is a huge problem right now. The whole show is a huge problem. We can say the defense is a problem, but let's say the defense was, 3-4 points better a game over the last few weeks. They still would have lost those games. So the whole thing's a problem. I hear you. I mean, we can pick and choose what's a bigger problem, but ultimately the whole thing's an issue. It just is. 808 Niner says, this is what I was trying to say on Thursday, Jess. Brock Purdy had a good stats, but these turnovers are awful. I don't care about the yards and completion percentage. He didn't win.
100%.
Right. And again, I don't think wins are necessarily a quarterback stat, and same thing with losses, but you're right. I mean, people wanted to give him a pass for playing a whole bad game against the Browns because the final drive he put Moody in position and Moody missed it. Well, as bad as the defense has been the last 2 weeks, Purdy still had his chances to go tie and or win these games. And in both those situations, he threw 4 picks in between those 2 games. So which one is it? You know what I mean? Like he had the chances. He didn't get it done, regardless of why.
And the defense actually did finally sort of step up at the end when Purdy threw that killer of an interception inside the 10-yard line. And they stopped him on the next drive. Mm-hmm. And then Purdy got the ball back and he threw it again, threw another pick.
Yep.
And it got returned. And then the very next play, or the second play, was this touchdown to Chase and putting him up by 2 touchdowns. And that was the game, right? And I just think that I think that those are the type of things where I think the defense is making adjustments. But yes, what I agree with 808 Niner is I agree the QB wins thing. No, but I get what he's saying, right? It's like, I agree that people that want to box score scout drive me insane, right? All of the plays with your legs, those are great. And if you don't make the turnovers, obviously that's great. But guess what? Those turnovers are happening. The turnover-worthy plays are happening. And I think what Jesse's been saying and other people have been saying is that he's actually been, since the beginning of the year, in the bottom 5 of the league consistently on turnover-worthy plays. So this is actually just the negative regression that he'd been able to avoid. I know Rich Madrid talks about this all the time, actually very objectively. Like talking about like how I like Brock. I like Brock. I really do. I like Brock Purdy.
The thing about Rich is he kills all quarterbacks equally. So yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
but Rich, though, saying that, like, hey, this turnover-worthy plays, the negative regression was going to come. And so you get people acting surprised or as if, like, Brock was never Jimmy Garoppolo. Brock was turnover-worthy plays last year, too. He just got very fortunate. And it doesn't mean he didn't play well. It just means that now with that negative regression, and here's another thing, guys. The effectively a rookie thing, I get it. But this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. This was the real deal. This is your franchise quarterback. You're telling people that, right? So we know there's room for growth for Purdy, but that room for growth long-term doesn't necessarily fit within the window of the current roster. And I just think that it's okay for people to lament that.
I'm going to throw out a extra topic here that was not a part of things, but it's got me thinking. We've got 40 super chats, so I think you and I can go through our thing, David, and then if you need to jet and get back with your family, I can go through the super chats.
My family
but I wanted to bring up Sam Darnold in this context here. I don't know what the 49ers are going to do after the bye week. I would assume they're still going to roll with Brock. But if at any point in this season he decides to pull Brock and go with Sam Darnold, like does he get that out? Like does he I feel like he can't do that at any point. I don't care how bad it gets with Brock because it looks so awful on him choosing to go with Brock the way that he has, choosing to forego all those draft picks, choosing to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo and all the decisions that have been made around this quarterback thing since 2017. I don't think that anybody gives him grace if at any point he says, you know what, I don't care if Brock plays like this for the rest of the season. At any point, if he goes to Sam, I feel like it's like enough is enough, man. How many quarterbacks are you going to churn through? Because the moment he does that, it is over for Brock Purdy. Like Brock Purdy is done here as the chance of being that guy. I don't think there's any scenario that Kyle can go to Sam. I don't. And if he does, I think it's a problem. What do you think?
I think that where I see you say effectively the rookie, Brock Purdy deserves, much like Trey Lance deserved, to have the opportunity to grow as a young quarterback in the league where you put confidence in him. And the fact, I think, to turn your back on Brock Purdy now for a Sam Darnold, when we've seen the body of work with Sam Darnold, can Sam Darnold have any success with this team? Sure. Do I think that would send a horrible message to Brock Purdy for his confidence? Absolutely. Do I think that confidence at quarterback is essential? It's the only thing. I firmly believe that one of the reasons that Colin Kaepernick, I feel like fell off in a lot of ways, where something with his juju and his confidence was gone. It's like the pitcher getting the yips. And I think that to sit here and bail in that situation, as a term you've used, quarterback polygamy under Kyle Shanahan, is what really, I think, be a death knell for this team. Because let me tell you right now, Sam Darnold ain't winning a Super Bowl. It ain't happening. I hate to talk in absolutes, but it's not. And for him to do that here, to me, would show such a impatience that could mortally really alter Brock Purdy's career. And I think that that's something that they need to take into consideration if, in fact, they want to count on him to be the guy in the future. I don't think you can go to Darnold. I really don't. That's my take. As much as I said, I think I told you, it's like I low key would like to see what. I mean, I think Kyle would probably like to see what Darnold could do. I think everybody would like to see if, like, we're all wrong that Sam Darnold actually isn't a pumpkin and he just would have been waiting for a guy like Kyle Shanahan. That being said, I think that's the wrong call. And as much as I did last year and the year before that with Trey Lance, I felt that if you're going to not, here's the other thing though, Jesse, would Trey Lance have gotten the same grace? This is relevant because Trey Lance was on the 49ers throughout the summer. He could still be there waiting in the wings instead of a guy like Sam Darnold. And when Trey was in those positions, I'm not even saying Trey is the answer. Obviously, I don't think I don't know. I don't know who Trey Lance is. But right now, I think because of the decisions they made with Trey, they almost have to stick with Brock. And the sad thing is that if Brock continues to have games, if he comes after the bye week and turns the ball over against Jacksonville, and they go to 5-4, and then you come back home to Tampa, eke out a win, short week to Seattle, go 6-5, go to Philly, go 6-6, and then you're going back home to play the Seahawks at 6-6, with the Seahawks probably having at least a 2-game lead on the division.
Yeah, it's Seattle's a good team, man.
They're a very good team.
Yep.
I picked Seattle. I had the Niners winning the division, but I said absolutely, and you know, Larry or other people call this a hedge. I think the idea that I said, don't be surprised. I think the Seahawks have every right. I got the receipts. I said, I am picking the Niners, but I'm not going to be surprised to see the Seahawks be the division winner. And right now, they're going to be active at the deadline as well.
They're the leader in the division right now.
You don't think that they want to, and look, I'm not a big believer in Geno Smith myself, but I think that the Seahawks right here are saying, hey, if this is our opportunity, we can do this. We've got weapons. And the Niners got to be careful because, the Cincinnati is not a conference loss. Jacksonville would not be a conference loss, but it's a loss. And I tell you.
Yeah, they're in a situation where in order to win the division and get the number 1 seed, they have to go 3-0 in those 2 Seattle and the Philadelphia game. They have to go 3-0. And I can't see that happening at this point. I really can't.
I honestly think that the 49ers likely will be 6-6 going into the Seattle game at home.
Oh God.
Well, hear me out. I think the Niners can beat Jacksonville. I actually don't think at this point that they will. I'm not going to be surprised if the Niners do. So here's the thing. Right now, the way the Niners are playing, no, I don't give a shit about a bye week or not. Like I think Jacksonville's also going to be coming off a bye week. Am I correct on that?
I don't know. I'd have to look at it.
So they're going to be coming off, going to Jacksonville. I feel like Jacksonville will be favored in that game. I think that's the Vegas books are going to flip. Okay. Then you're going to come back for Tampa. I think that's probably a win for the Niners. Okay. Short week on Thursday Night Football to go to Seattle for a night game. That's a big ask. So to me, I'm looking at 5-4, 6-4, 6-5, go into Philly. I'm sorry, guys. Like right now, I look at this team as 6-6.
Oh, no, you're right. They are coming off of a bye week. That doesn't do us any favors.
No. So maybe they're 7-5 going to play the home game against the Seahawks. Maybe. I honestly think it's more likely that this is a 6-6 team at that point. And at that point, that's a must win. If you get swept by Seattle and you're 6-7, then you go into Arizona, eke that out. You're 7-7. Then you got to go play Baltimore at home and go to Washington, go back to the. I'm just telling you guys, my more than likely pick was 11-6. That was my pick for them this year. My pick was 11-6. Best case 12-5, but worst case scenario was 9-8 with injuries. I don't know if that's the worst case scenario anymore.
At 5-0, I said, boy, I wish I could take it back now.
Mm-hmm.
But I said that if you ask me right now at 5-0, one of two things are going to happen, guaranteed. You don't know which one, but the 49ers either finish undefeated in the regular season or they lose 3 games. I said it was more likely that they went undefeated. And now they've lost 3 games just 3 weeks later. That's an absolutely crazy thing to think about. Let's talk about the trade deadline overall, David.
Yep.
I think Steph in her tweet brings up a really good point. Where do you want to dump assets at some point? Like this team is getting older. They should be good enough to get it done potentially with this roster. I think Montez Sweat is a guy that we've been hearing a lot of rumblings about, along with some other players. I mean, should the 49ers go be buyers at the trade deadline? Or should they just say, you know what? We're just going to ride this one out at this point. What do you think they should do, and what do you think they are going to do?
I'll tell you this. I'm not gonna sit on the fence on this one. I think they have to be buyers, and I'll tell you why. I don't think they have any options beyond this. I think their options at quarterback are nil. They're going to win games. They're not going to be in a position to get the guy that they want. They have draft capital, but it's not going to be enough to move up. There's plenty of other teams that are really bad that want quarterback, and the 49ers are not going to draft a quarterback in the first round next year. That's not going to happen no matter how badly Purdy plays. So. And at that point, you're missing it. Your veteran quarterbacks are gone. I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles. He's going to be cheaper. I guarantee you, Kyle Shanahan is going to bring Kirk Cousins. I will tell you this right now. There's a guarantee. Kirk Cousins is going to be a 49er next year. And, but that's so what? Like we don't know how well he's going to recover. I think they have to be buyers because this is a Super Bowl window. This is a roster with talent, regardless of how poorly the defense is playing right now. Regardless of how much they're turning the ball over, regardless of how poor they look against inferior opponents, they have to make a change. And I think right now what you're going to see is, yes, Eric Armstead got home a couple times. It doesn't
really. Those were Bosa. That was Bosa pushing.
I agree.
Pushing him up. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Eric Armstead got home like Kerry Hyder style, right? Like hustle sacks.
He
right?
got home like Drake Jackson. Actually, it's interesting because Drake Jackson got 3 sacks and 2 of those came off of Armstead pressing the quarterback directly into him. So it's like he finally got his comeuppance and got his sacks this week that he deserved in week 1.
Well, and that's the thing. And I think right now is the guys that were talking about the Niners rush defense is horrible. They're horrible. And people knew that. They said that about Javon Hargrave. I thought Javon Hargrave was playing excellently at the beginning of the year. Not so much lately. I think he's getting blown off of blocks. I think he's just out of place in the run game. I think that, but they should have the depth though. The Niners, just you've said this, the Niners should have the personnel to make this happen. But you can never be too short on edge rushers. So I think edge is important, and they have to do something at corner. Isaiah Oliver was way up and down today. Charvarius Ward, is he the most penalized cornerback of the last 3 weeks? It's pretty embarrassing at this point. And I've been a huge Mooney Ward stan. Huge. He played incredibly well last year and very well at the beginning of the year. But right now, I'm telling you, teams are attacking him. He's grabby. He gambles. His recovery has not been great. And even today, when they had a questionable call on him, look, you lose benefit of the doubt when you keep grabbing and you keep getting physical and you keep getting flags. Sorry, referees are human. It sucks.
Well, and nobody's afraid of him. Teams are picking on him, quite frankly.
100%. So you got to address corner. You have to address. I keep saying the offensive line. Honestly, guys, like I have to go back and watch the pretty good. Trent Williams was out 2 games, and that they played. Jalen Moore played well.
I agree.
And here's the thing that people don't want to talk about. Trent Williams has played well. Trent Williams, though, being out, there's been other big games against the Rams in the playoffs. The 49ers figured out a way to win without Trent Williams. The 49ers have figured out a way to win without Trent Williams. So this idea of like going, you're not going to find anybody worth their salt in free agency. You're not going to find anybody at the trade deadline on the offensive line that's going to be like a miracle worker, right? But they don't really need a miracle worker right now. This defense is a sieve. I'm from hockey country, okay? So in Minnesota, where it's like their whole line, if the goalie's having it's like sieve. This is a sieve, man. It's every time, Jesse, have you seen a drive where you've the last several weeks where you even remotely think the 49ers like have any chance of making, I mean, that's how bad it's gotten. It's like, I fully expect them not to make a stop. Dre Greenlaw is hurt. Dre Greenlaw is a shell of himself. There's no answers out there, but they're going to have to make a big play. The question is, who's it going to be? I know you both and I think that Montez Sweat is the guy that they're going to bring in. I actually think he would be a huge help. But I also think they need to bring in quarterback depth. And if that means, what do you think, Jesse? What capital is too rich for a big-time player? Is this a team that needs to hold on, absolutely come hell or high water for a first round pick? Because I'll tell you this team has mortgaged way too many picks for Trey Lance and gave up on him. And now, but what do you do? Like, you're going to be drafting near the middle of the end of the first round. Like, is that even high enough to get an offensive tackle that you want? Is that even a guarantee? They're gonna John Lynch is gonna have to earn his paycheck in the next 48 hours. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, he is. This is gonna be interesting. I think Sweat's gonna end up being here, and I don't know that that's enough. I don't know it's enough.
It's not.
I really don't. I mean, at this point, you've dumped so many assets into that defensive line, and you're not getting it done as is. I mean, you're adding Sweat is like, okay, yeah, sure. It might be a Band-Aid, but there's a bigger problem going on right now. Matt says, when we are behind, Brock is not good. Sorry. David, I've got almost 50 of these things.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a chance. Do you want to bow out? I've made it through my topics with you. So I don't want to keep you from the fam. This might take a little bit to get through. If you want to stick around, I'll take you, but
I'll stick around and just listen and chat in when we can. Cause it's therapy.
I got you. Okay. All right. Raheem says, don't blame the players for this team's lack of direction and focus because of the circus training camp that the front office allowed to happen. That's on leadership. It's a very, very good point. Very, very good point. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened, and we talked about that. At some point, here's the thing, and what I think you're seeing a little bit of, David, is in a culmination of a bunch of questionable decision-making, finally all hitting you at once. Okay. So we can talk about the quarterback position, passing on certain players, not trading for certain players, what have you, dumping all those assets into CMC and Trey Lance. It was a lot of assets, and eventually not having those assets means that you can't really stock the cupboard when shelves start going bare. And when you couple all of those things together, along with continuously the last 2 years kicking the can down the road on contracts of some of our oldest players, missing on third-round picks repeatedly, at some point, those things start to add up. And I don't know if it means that the sky is falling and for sure we're out of it or whatever, but maybe all those decisions by themselves aren't enough to derail you, but when they all hit at once, this is what you see. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's as simple as that. Darkness says, trade Debo. This team needs a true wide receiver. These gadget guys are fun. They get hurt. And once the defense figures them out, they can't score. It is it almost seems like the offense sometimes is ran by a magician. And once you figure out his tricks, it's like, okay, like what do you do? Brother Bob says, Nails, you got to let me go ham on PP on your next show, bro. Within reason. You know how I am, man. I'm not one of those guys that allows my guests to get berated. And I definitely don't want that to happen over a football take for sure. Daniel says O-line looked like a bucket full of holes. Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that one. I'll have to go back and watch it, Daniel. I'll have to go back and watch it. Jonathan says, honestly, Jesse, it's all one phrase. Karma is a B. I don't know what you're referring to karma-wise, but okay. Gojira Von Jinx just became a member. I appreciate you. 209er says, it's the same story we had with Jimmy. Looks good until it doesn't. Fair. Keith says, told you, I'll pick next time we win. Yeah, man, it's hard to pick the 49ers at this point. It really is. GTC Real says, we can trade 2 firsts for trade. Golly. Niner Matt says, don't want to overreact, but Jesse, they really said we were crazy about trading Bosa for Lamar. Thank you. QB matters more. Wish Kyle understood that. What did you want to say about that one, David?
Oh, I just want to say I was right on board with you. I thought that was if I don't think the Ravens would have done it, but that was exactly what
I said. If they at that time, if they wanted Purdy or Trey, first round pick and Bosa, and you can get Lamar, you make that happen. And yes, I still agree with that. Jason says Kyle Shanahan normally doesn't hit his groove until the bye. Okay, you might be right about that. This might be the same thing that we've seen for the last few seasons where the 49ers hit this lull and then they pick it up. The problem with this, Jason, is that the 49ers desperately need to be the number 1 seed. They need that bye week so bad. Look at this team. It took 6 weeks for them to fall apart and for some of that age to show an injury history. Now you're expecting a team out of the bye week, by the way, to go the final 9 weeks of the season where every week, again, just like it has been the last couple weeks, is essentially a playoff game. Must-win game after must-win game against good team after good team. And maybe they make it happen again. But at what expense? What is going to happen when you get to the playoffs? Are you out of gas again? That has been the problem. It's not that they can't make it. It's not that they haven't pushed this far. But when they started 5-0, the hope was they could get that number 1 seed and this year could be different. Now they've put themselves right back in that same situation. And every week now matters again, which means they can't take their foot off the gas. They're likely not going to get that bye week. And my guess is we see something similar, even if it turns around where they get to an NFC championship and they just don't have enough to get through. And that bye week was crucial yet again. Same problem. That's what I'm worried about. Vicky says Kyle is the issue. He is an offensive coordinator. He will never win a Super Bowl as a head coach. I actually think Kyle will win a Super Bowl probably as a head coach, but I wrote an article 2.5 years ago, and I'm going to stand by that I'm not sure that it's going to happen here. I'm just not. Jonathan says, here's $2. Appreciate you. You're muted. You're muted. Muted. You're muted. David, you're muted.
Use check to gain a yard at the beginning, and then use check again, who could barely pick up a yard. Those were some quibbles, right? But other than that, mm-hmm. I think Kyle Shanahan put Brock Purdy in a position to, again, play well. And at some point you have to put it on the players, but I don't know what we're going to do without Kyle.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this is not a fire Kyle statement. Kyle is very good, but I have thought for a couple years that much like Andy Reid, who I think the world of now that he's definitely got rings, how can you not? the Eagles were always competitive. He just couldn't get over. And then finally he made a switch, got the right quarterback, and has made things shake, So it's that might be what happens with Kyle as well. I think Kyle is a very good coach. I just don't know that it's going to happen here. We'll see. And now, if you don't win it this year and you've got an aging team, you kind of are starting to retool / rebuild on the fly. And that's not an easy thing to do. Pete Carroll did it masterfully, where they had one down year-ish, but really Pete Carroll has kept that team competitive. I don't know how he did it on the fly the way that he did. Actually, I do. They basically hit on every single freaking draft pick. That is not easy to do. And the 49ers would need to do that over the next 2 years if they want to be right back in this same position with a young team that is up and coming and putting themselves in a position to win a Super Bowl again. So we'll see. Daza says, well, we got to see up close the difference between an average quarterback and an elite franchise quarterback. Are you talking about the difference between Burrow and Purdy? I'd say at this point, yeah, that's fair. Brother Bob says, screw idiots like PP. He will blame the defense and the concussion. He can do what he wants, man. Jonathan says, here's $2 more. I'm assuming, Jonathan, you're trying to make a comment, and I wish I could go through the 1,500 comments and find what you're actually trying to say, because I hate that you're giving me money, and I know that there's something that you're trying to say. I just won't be able to find it at this point. Ken W. says, when do you question about trading Trey Lance? When do questions about trading Trey Lance start to get louder and louder? If they miss the playoffs, does Lynch get canned or Shanny? They just extended both of them, man. They just extended both of them. I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of money and a lot of years to walk away from. I don't believe that's probably the case. I think this is the first time. This isn't the first time in 8 weeks that I've heard Trey Lance's name. A lot of people, when Brock Purdy was playing well, really wanted to pile on how shitty Trey Lance was. But this is the first time in 8 weeks that I've heard Trey Lance's name be brought up in a postgame multiple times, and not because Brock Purdy has proven that it was a good move to get rid of Trey Lance. Now it's starting to turn the other way, which is, why the hell did they get rid of Trey? So I would say that moment is now. It's not something that I planned on talking about, but clearly you guys in the chat have brought it up multiple times at this point.
Hey, I see people that are in my timeline that I get along with, I have good conversations with, but that are pretty strong, hardcore, I don't like to use the word stan because it seems like it's kind of dismissive, but I'd say are pretty reluctant to sometimes maybe go to the point of like offering critiques. And they are universally saying the last several games aren't good, Bob, right? Like they are saying, like, they're finally kind of like saying, like, it's okay to maybe have this conversation. And I think that's telling. And I think that it's okay to have these conversations, and it's not hate. This could get worse. This could get worse.
Yeah. I mean, at what point the biggest feature, I guess, for lack of better term, I can't come up with a better one right now, but that Brock Purdy had to his game that I talked about all the time was simply his mental makeup. And I believe that regardless of what happened around him, it would take a lot to shake him. I don't know that a young player, I don't care how strong your mental makeup is, can come off of a 3-game losing streak where you played a role in all of those losses, can overcome this on the fly. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's going to take a lot, but it's expecting a lot from him. Marco Bravo says, Purdy G in the making. Purdy ain't it. Brother Bob says, BP needs Debo, so defenses respect the dump off and 200 yards of yak.
But to be quick on that, they're actually moved. This is the thing, though. The Niners have actually moved the ball very, 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 very well the last 2 weeks. They're not struggling to move the ball.
Yeah.
It's just that there's been stupid turnovers, and CMC had one last week too. But this idea that Debo being gone, that they can't execute, is not true. All due respect.
Yeah, I think this is more of a dig at Purdy, honestly, saying that
Yeah.
he needs the yak, otherwise he's not going to be effective. Knowing brother Bob, I think that's what he's doing. Jonathan says Darnold is looking like a real probability now. Here's the other thing, Jonathan, and we did talk about it. I'm glad that you finally got your comment off, man. I was a little worried there, but we talked about it and both agreed that they shouldn't make that move and that it would look awful if they did. But a lot of people got mad at the notion when I brought this up this week, David. And I know that you agreed with me. And when it looked like Brock Purdy was not going to play because he had the concussion, if Sam had come in and they had played well and they had won this game, I said that I believe that there is a chance that they go to Sam Darnold off the bye. And people thought, oh, I had people telling me it's clickbait and I'm doing it for clicks and all these other things. This is kind of what I was talking about. I also think that there is a possibility that if he had played if Purdy played and played a third bad game, that it was a possibility as well. I do think it's less of a possibility because you still haven't seen it from Sam. And that is a big unknown. But I do think that there is a possibility it happens. And again, this is not something I would do.
I agree.
But you have to remember the way that Kyle Shanahan talked about Sam Darnold. You have to remember that they offered the 12th overall pick in 2021 before they traded up to 3 for Sam Darnold and were rejected. You have to remember all of those things.
Yep.
He does not look at Sam Darnold the way that you, I, and everybody else does. He just doesn't. And at this point, Brock Purdy is not this guy. From a standpoint of choosing him as your franchise guy, moving off of him would be asinine. But as far as what he's actually proven in this league, he's not this guy that you can't move off of. He's just not. So I do think that the possibility was bigger if Sam had played this week and played well. I do think that it does exist, however, after a third bad game from Brock Purdy. I think it is still an option. I do.
I also think that you're right about that, Jesse. And I also think that Sam Darnold is a guy that, like you said, the money they paid him to come here, you cannot tell me that Kyle doesn't want to have the opportunity to see what if. You cannot tell me that there's not something inside of him going into a bye week where I don't care how the box score scouted that. Those turnovers from Brock Purdy were horrendous. And it's been 3 weeks in a row. 3 weeks in a row of horrendous ball placement, of horrendous.
In the worst moments, though, too. It's not like they're just happening throughout the game and they're overcoming it. He's had 5 chances being down within one score to go either take the lead or tie a game in the last 3 weeks. And in those chances, he has thrown 5 interceptions and had another 3 turnover-worthy plays. It has not looked good. It's looked as bad as it possibly could. In fact, it's not. It looks as bad as Jimmy Garoppolo in the playoffs, where the drop-off was like astonishing. It's not like, okay, he was great, and then it was like, yeah, he was okay, but it was good enough. It's going from great play at times to bottom of the league type of play in these moments. That's what's happening. That's alarming.
And what's more alarming is, Jesse, you know what's going to happen now. Teams have already been doing it. They are going to double, triple, quadruple down on making Brock Purdy beat them.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say, like, I know he had a game against Wink Martindale, like Herbert did against Brian Flores in the same week, right? They're going to send the pressure. They're going to stack the buck. They're going to say, buddy, make Kyle Shanahan, hold your hand. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it, guys. It's going to happen. And I'm telling you that I'm not saying the sky is falling, but those of you who say that the only way to go from here is up, you're mistaken. This can get worse. This can actually offensively get worse. And because when the wheels fall off, you ever seen, I remember my kid like on a bike. You ever seen your kid on a bike? They're about ready to crash. You see the wobble. I'm telling you guys, this team right now is wobbling. This team right now is and it's like, and you can't sometimes, no matter what you do as a coach, you've got to put it in the hands of these players. And right now, I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome the wobble. I really don't.
Here's the answer to our question. Why? Remember when we were like, was the interception ruled a fumble? Because you looked at the box score. Here's what happened. Matt says it, and then Keith says it. The interception was taken back because they called it a low hit on the quarterback. Then the very next play, he fumbled.
You know what? I didn't actually know that because we were ready to go on.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, we transitioned. Can I just say that's actually worse?
I agree. I completely agree.
This is, to me, guys, like that interception, there was minimal pressure. Minimal. There's still time to try and cobble something together. Yeah. Same thing with the Vikings.
You're not saying pressure on the play. He was clearly pressure on the play, but you're saying pressure to make a play because they had time.
No, but I'm still saying there was pressure on the play, but it wasn't like the pressure on the play. The interception was like absolutely guy in his face. I can't even move my arm forward, right?
Yeah.
There's pressure in the NFL. People are saying like, oh, this turnover-worthy play happened. There was pressure. Well, yeah, there's pressure. Like that happens. I would just say against the Vikings, guys, I can say whatever, the symptoms, whatever. Those plays that he threw interceptions on were not under pressure. Those throws were not plays that he absolutely had to make. And none of them also in this game were throws that he had to make. That is more troubling. And the fact on the very next play, he's turning the ball over. Guys, like I had talking to 80 49ers, my favorite fan, and they're completely triggered by just saying, guys, maybe Purdy might, all caps might not be it. If we can't have that conversation, that really strikes me as like, boy, are we?
Yeah.
This is the standard. I said this against the Giants. This is not the standard of quarterback play that you should have in the first half. And I got eviscerated for it by people thinking that I was tweeting it out when they were winning, like and doing well. Like, I'm telling you right now, this is not the standard of quarterback play that the 49ers need to win the Super Bowl. And if you think it is, Godspeed.
I agree with you. That actually does make it worse. It does make it worse. 80 with the $1.99 says Burrow's back. Burrow is back. Fair enough. Glass half full guy, member for 4 months. Appreciate you. He says, does this change what the 49ers do at the deadline? I don't think so. I think that it's going to make them feel even more desperate to make a move. I do. Jonathan says, Jesse, the depth is horrible. Well, when you go spend big in free agency on a guy like Jerome Hargrove, as Shannon Sharp calls him, then, this is what happens. You're going to lose some of that depth. And it's happening right in front of us. Koss says, I say get rid of Kyle if he can't get a quarterback. He's been here too long to keep failing at this. They just signed him to an extension, man. They just signed him to an extension. Black Suburban says he doesn't deserve grace because we're in win now mode. That's the entire reason why they had to get rid of Trey. We didn't have time for grace. It's fair. I mean, that is fair. I guess for me, I give grace to the player. I don't give grace to the organization. Is that fair? Like, the team doesn't deserve grace, but Brock also didn't ask for this. Like, all Brock did was come in as the last pick in the draft in a really bad situation and play really good football. Like, that's not his fault. He did what he was supposed to do. Then the team decided to just turn everything over to him. And I'm sure he was happy about that, but that's not his fault. Like, so I understand it. Like, as a fan, if you were on a Trey Lance bandwagon a bit, having people talk ish month after month can be frustrating. And it feels like you've got to now overcorrect all the things that other people said. But in the middle of this is a 23-year-old player who is playing in his 13th career regular season start, that all he has done is outplayed his contract. Brock has done nothing wrong. He hasn't. Now, if you want to go at fans and you want to go at the organization, sure, do that. But Brock himself, in my opinion, deserves that grace. He does.
I believe he deserves the grace too. That's the thing. I believe Brock deserves a chance to, if you're calling a guy a real deal, you got to give these kids. And by the way, Brock, you're right. This is the thing. When I criticize Brock, I do it not out of spite. Same way I would criticize Travarius Ward or Brandon Ayuk
For
or
sure.
Aaron Banks
Yes.
or any other
Yes.
player. And it's
Yes.
not vitriol. It's just objectively critiquing.
Yes.
And I think that I agree with you, Jesse. And I also think that because this team is allegedly, I mean, does 42-10 at the beginning of the fourth quarter against the Dallas Cowboys seem like a decade ago now?
Oh, it most certainly does. Yes.
That feeling of us, all of us, we were hyped, right? Like this idea that like there was a confidence in the building. And I think in this business, though, there are certain things that can be a mirage. And it's a 17-game season. That being said, there's ways to come back. I don't know. I don't know if Brock has a game against Jacksonville like this. I strongly believe that Sam Darnold will be facing Tampa.
Oh, yeah. If he has another one, for sure. I don't know that it happens for sure out of the bye, but definitely. Jesus, I think I just answered your question, Jesus, or your comment. He says, I refuse to give grace to a fan base. Okay, that's fair. What you're saying there is fair. I just want to make sure that it's unfair to do to Brock Purdy, is what I'm saying. If you want to go with the fan base, that is fine. I understand you wanting to fight fire with fire. I do, Jesus. I understand taking that stance, and I'm not going to begrudge you if you feel like it was over the top, because I agree. I felt like it was over the top one way. But I just like in that moment, you have to remember how unfair people were to Trey Lance. Remember that there is a human being. And I can tell you, now that Trey's gone, I can tell you this unequivocally. I know for a fact, this is not my opinion.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you how I know these things.
Yep.
But I know for a fact that Trey Lance's family was feeling the effects of
100%.
all that hate that was coming Trey Lance's way. And on the other end of this is a human being. So treating Brock Purdy and going that in on Brock Purdy the way that people did Trey Lance, although it may feel good in the moment, the flip side is that Brock's family is on social media and they are also going to see those things, and it will wear on them as well.
And that being said,
we have to remember those things.
And we can remember that, and it's okay to say
it doesn't mean that we can't critique him.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's Jesse's not saying that. That's what I was trying to say. Is like there's a fine line between being an absolute, I won't say it, but like the idea that, yes, I also know there's certain things that we know, won't say how I know this, that I think people forget that Brock came in last year after Jimmy went down. Brock was not a guy that Kyle Shanahan handpicked. Brock was not a guy that Kyle Shanahan thought is the wonder kind. It was not the way the 49ers drew this up at all. At all. And so I think that does play a part here, is that Kyle acquiesced. Kyle said, okay, and Kyle's going to build up confidence. But I will tell you this, you can call it quarterback polygamy or what have you. I don't even know if that's a great term, but I honestly think that Kyle is like, hey, I'm not paying this guy. What's he making? What, $750,000 or something like that?
Like $850 or something like
that. $850. Yeah. This is not something where Kyle feels any pressure. I guarantee you, when the rubber hits the road. Kyle's got his extension. Yeah, they made their. Kyle and John's got their bag. What's Jed gonna do? Fire him? No. So, like, I'm telling you right now, like, there's gonna be some conversation, and if this is a meritocracy as much as like people want to think, I'm not going to be surprised at all when Sam Darnold starts getting a couple reps. I don't think it's the right call. I also think that if Trey Lance were still on this team, and if they had not acquired Sam Darnold, and you had two young quarterbacks, and Brock had played the way he has the last 3 games, are you telling me that Kyle Shanahan might not have gone to Trey Lance at the end of that game? Are you telling me that's outside the realm of possibility? I just don't buy that. And so I'm going to think it's going to be these next 2 weeks are going to be interminable. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of speculation. Okay. Joey Mellon says defense can't stop the run, the pass, can't get to the quarterback. Purdy is throwing picks. What the hell happened to this team after Dallas, brother? If I had the answers, I would be coaching this team. Vinyl Work says, I bet the Niners behind the doors regret trading Trey Lance. I never want to hear Brock Purdy and Joe Montana in the same sentence ever again. Okay. Jason says, if the 2016 team had shown up today instead of the Bengals, Carlos Hyde gets 175 yards and 2 tuds. Maybe. Jonathan says the Bengals running offense looked good against our defense. By the way, wasn't that their run offense ranked in the bottom of the half of the league? It was. And I actually talked about this with Coach today when I was on my walk before I think he went live. And I said, I think a lot of those numbers are going to be skewed because they are a team that uses their pass game to set up their run game. And nobody was scared of their pass game because of Joe Burrow's injury and T. Higgins' injury. And now that they are healthy, it would open things up for them, and it definitely has. North of Nowhere says the defense has been bad, but the offense went from scoring 33 points a game through week 5 to 17 each of the last 3 games.
Yeah.
Yes, agree with you. Juan Torres says, will we ever invest in our O-line? Philly and the Hawks do. Ooh, brother, that's great question. They need to. They should have been, and they haven't been. Derek says, blaming the GM and head coach for not prioritizing cornerback and linemen.
Hmm?
Fair. Offensive lineman again. Joey Mellon says, defense can't tackle. That's the other thing. The defense can't tackle right now, and that is not necessarily a Wilkes problem. But again, somebody will likely be scapegoated, and it might be Wilkes during the bye week. We'll see. Clone Trooper says it's not all on Brock, but it's definitely concerning seeing these types of plays 3 weeks in a row for a guy that's supposed to be a franchise quarterback. I agree. It's not all on him, and it is concerning because we are still talking about a quarterback with a small sample size. And right now, those 3 games in a row being the most recent games are starting to ring every bit as loud as those 15 or so good games that we saw. They just are at this point. And it's like, which one is the real Brock Purdy? You're not going to know for a while. RS says San Francisco's last interception was called back for roughing the passer. Brock Purdy fumbled on the next play. Strip sack fumbled. Damn you, Wilkes. Yeah. Again, we talked about that. We didn't know because we went live after what we thought was the interception. Again, David and I both agree that is more alarming that he turned it over a second straight time after getting the ball gifted back. KOS says this is all on Kyle Shanahan. The whole team lacks discipline.
Well, I will say this. I commented on this, and this is one of those little anecdotal things, but everybody talked about the 49ers culture. I know my buddy Marco texted me. He's like, hey, a couple guys coming to the mic, joking, laughing. You know, I feel, I'm not saying, like, there's things I know from his other ability too. Like, there's a little bit of this. There's a little bit of invincibility with certain players on this roster, and there's a little bit of a country club culture. And I think it's like, hey, we're all family. Hey, we're all buddies. Hey, we're like Fred Warner talking about, we got to find a way to win the grimy games. Like, that sounds great soundbite, Fred. All due respect, but like, I mean, like, I don't know, man. Like,
how about just find a way to win a game at this
point? What
does
that mean? Yeah, what does that mean to find a way? Like, you guys are pros. Like this is you guys are elite. So I feel like there's a little bit of this idea that I think the 49ers really bought into this. Nick Bosa talked about it. Like, we're 5-0. We bought into that. We don't need to be better than this. We don't need to keep the pedal to the metal. We are him, right? We are us. Like, we are the, and I don't know, man.
The league always has a way to humble you.
Yep.
It does. And Bosa talked about it last week. Real OBJ says, why are we not using Mason in the run game? Yeah, I mean, I would like to see him in the run game. The problem is he messes up a lot on blocks and routes and all the other little things that come with being on the field. Not that he shouldn't be running the football. I think that he should, but I don't know, man. There's a lot of issues with this team right now. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says there's one scenario: injury to Brock. I saw somebody else say this, by the way, that maybe he hit his head on the turf after that interception that was called back. Maybe that he might be concussed again and would be gone for a long time, and they would have to go to Sam. Much like the way that Tua got it last year, right? Like, if you had a second concussion in 2 weeks, on the last interception that they called back and then he fumbled, If that did happen, he will miss a significant amount of time. He
I
will.
will say this. I feel like I want the best for Brock. It's not Brock's fault, the narratives that get sent around him. However, it is mind-numbing the amount of excuses that will come out, the amount of like almost reverse conspiracy theories of like, well, like you see, that's why this, I mean, that's why X happened. It's just like, I feel like I wish other players of other positions were given the amount of grace that Brock Purdy has been getting.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that they can, like, I don't think that would happen this week because that was the third turnover. Like the third turnover happened. But if he did, and I'll have to go watch it. I don't know for sure. If he did in fact hit his head on that play and is concussed, then that's now you start to worry about the person. Right.
Yeah.
Much like we did with Tua last year, where there was a lot of concern. And that bled over into this show. I talked about it over here because I was so concerned about Tua. I would be just as concerned about Brock Purdy in that sense. 808 Niner says, I'm not talking quarterback win stat. The only thing that matters is that we lost. I hear you. No, I hear you, 808 Niner. I got you. Larry likes to dress it up with look at his stats. Wins are the most important stat. No, I agree, especially because these are the turnovers that are happening are in winning game situations. So it doesn't matter what happened prior to that. I hear what you're saying. Beats and Meat says Lance to the Vikings, Dalvin and Sweat to the Niners. What saith you? Interesting that you say Lance to the Vikings.
I think I could see it happening, and I actually suggested that the Vikings just send the Dallas Cowboys a fourth rounder, which is going to be a worse pick than the Cowboys. The Cowboys had given up a fourth rounder to the 49ers, which is probably going to be near the end of the fourth round. If the Vikings were to give up, I think the Vikings are positioning themselves to be near the top of the draft anyway. I had some Vikings fans disagree with me, but they're we're 4-4. I'm like, well, yes, but you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
And you're not really that good. And Justin Jefferson probably is not going to come back either. And so,
and you're also not going to be as bad enough to necessarily get one of those top two quarterbacks either, which
you might be though, because they're going to probably end up going.
Hold on. Do you not realize that Nick Mullins is there?
Oh, excuse me. What was I thinking?
Take all of that back. Thank you very much.
There's also Jaron Hall from BYU, Steve Young's protege. I think that. I just think
you messed up, pal.
No, so actually, I think the Lance trade would be a great hedge.
Yeah,
because trading a fourth round pick and then seeing what you have and letting. I don't know. Stranger things have happened, and I actually think it would be actually prudent from the Cowboys' point of view to try to and I actually think that's why the Cowboys traded for Lance in the first place. I think that the trip
was to try to get something bigger for him. Yeah,
possibly. But even if it's just it's not that much to give up, and we could probably get back a fourth or fifth, and who the hell cares what that fourth was, right?
Yeah.
And I think,
No, I agree. And the Dalvin and Sweat thing, I had actually put out a video this morning that said that I think Sweat will be a 49er.
Yeah.
And not that I think Dalvin Cook is going to come here, but that the 49ers should make an offer for Cook. And the reason that I said it was because the 49ers don't seem to trust any running back other than Christian McCaffrey. Dalvin Cook is not happy with his role with the Jets. He is essentially asked to be traded, and he would be the perfect person to spell Christian McCaffrey because he's basically a poor man's Christian McCaffrey, which means every little thing that you run with Christian, you can run with Dalvin, and you can take some of those miles off of Christian and keep him healthy. So I would love. So what saith you? I would be very happy with that happening. Dalvin
he could also pass protect, which Elijah Mitchell sometimes looks like an absolute bum. I hate to say it, and it's like I think Jordan Mason's one of those guys who's just not looked as an all around player. They're hammering CMC between the tackles right now. Like they are absolutely abusing CMC completely. So I think Dalvin's lost a lot of juice, but for a one cut guy in a Kyle Shanahan offense as a RB2, RB3, why the hell not? It's not going to cost you hardly anything.
I agree. Jonathan says Kyle kicked the season off with bad juju. Yeah, maybe, man. Brother Bob says I got to go shower, then watch the wife's Chargers. Keep my ear on the phone. Sounds good, Brother Bob. I appreciate you. What the F? It almost reads, what the F you, Dave? If I didn't know any better, I would think that you were cursing me out. Beats and Meat says Kyle's offense works because we have two wide backs, CMC and Debo. We're essentially 0-3 without Debo. That's how matchups work. Yeah, but then they were undefeated last year when Debo was out. So, but I hear you. I mean, they do. It's a gadget offense. It is, and they need the gadgets. Brian says can't invest more into the defense until Wilkes proves that he can produce with the overwhelming talent he already has. I don't know that Wilkes is going to be here to coach that defense, but I hear you. Jason says Kyle Shanahan is like Dungy, team builder, but can't win it all. Interesting. Okay. GTC Real says the only problem with comparing Kyle and Reed is Reed knows quarterbacks and Kyle does not. Kyle needs to be a head coach and not the OC of this team. Well, if you remember, Kyle said before taking the 49er job, he was hesitant because the quarterback was not in place. It's almost like he knows that about himself, that he is not a good evaluator when it comes to the quarterback position. But if one is in place that is very good, he can get the most out of him. And so he would have almost preferred probably to go to a franchise that had a quarterback in place that maybe the rest of the roster wasn't as good and that he could have built around that quarterback. So if he gets that situation, he'll be fine. Dave says, who did we acquire, or is there anyone that can help Kyle being on his own way? He is the ultimate choke artist. Once his plan is shot or doesn't work, he can't change in the game. Stop with CMC. Mason. Okay. You hate Kyle again. I hear it, Dave. It was a fun 2 weeks, wasn't it? Daza says, is it even worth getting someone? We might need to face the facts. We're just not a potential Super Bowl team. You might be right about that, Daza, but I believe that they will probably make a move. I think that they feel like they can still get it done. Beats and Meat says, yeah, go ahead.
CMC had 12 carries today, guys.
I know he didn't touch the ball.
He had 6-7 targets. He touched it 18 times. He's been touching it 25 to 30 times a game.
Yeah. This was the best that we've seen as far as his touches.
Yeah.
Beats and Meat says Mason doesn't play because he can't pass block and he runs the wrong routes. Yes, agree. Brock's an anticipatory quarterback, and if you run the wrong route, the ball goes to the middle linebacker. I agree with that.
Yeah, except when he just throws it to the middle linebacker for no reason.
Yeah, which has been happening anyways. Give Me Cash says Shanahan is cursed with quarterbacks going back to RG3. Ooh. Brother Bob says, okay, out of the shower. Yes, I was ripping Brock Purdy. He's been buns. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been great. Dazza says people acting like the turnovers are new. He turned the ball over last year. Just the interceptions weren't caught. I think that's what's alarming to people is, again, people wanted to argue that turnover-worthy plays were not a stat that you should talk about. But I think that we're starting to see why it is a stat you should talk about. Birdman says the Niners defense looks like the USC defense. Swiss cheese. Oof. John says fire Wilkes, trade every pick to fix the defense. Cousin and Burrow went 67 of 77 the last 2 weeks. Brock isn't blameless, but it is not all of his fault that we are losing. But is it all of his fault that we're losing? No, I agree with you. It's not all his fault. He's definitely contributing to those losses, though. Michael says Wilkes has to go. Sound the alarm. Let Chris Kosaric take over as DC. I don't think he wants to be a DC. He had the opportunity to do that this offseason.
He's not a DC.
Yeah. And what happens coming out of the bye? If we do seek a trade, make it a cornerback. I would love to get a lockdown corner. Sean says, you're the only 49er content creator I'm subscribed to. Thank you, Sean. Is it me or does your team only throw to the middle of the field? Go Eagles. Brother, that's the quarterback, man. I mean, that is what Kyle Shanahan has done with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. The arm strength has not been there for either quarterback to throw outside the numbers on a regular basis. It's just the way that the offense is built. I think that was a reason why they made the move for Trey. They gave up on Trey too early. Maybe he would have never been the answer. I appreciate you for subscribing, and make sure that you tap in the week that we play the Eagles. I think it'll be a lot of fun, man. Thank you. Nees says, this is also a reason that they got rid of Trey. Purdy was bound to struggle, and he doesn't need more controversy. Give him confidence that he has support. Yeah, I agree, Nees. I like that, and it was something that I talked about in the offseason. But Kyle likes Sam Darnold a lot for whatever reason. And so I don't know that the pressure is completely gone because Trey's not there. Official B&A Music, what's up, man? How you been? Says Kyle threw Wilkes under the bus last week that the bus was trying to distract from his offense looking like poo. Can Wilkes get the keys to the bus? Nice.
No.
Nice. Yeah, he might get the keys to riding a bus out of town. We'll see. John says trade every pick and fix the defense. Fire Wilkes. Ugh. Twisted Clown says, here we go, Jesse. Shitting on Trey. Just kidding. Yeah, I know. I can't win. Dave says Greenlaw doesn't look on point either. Yeah, David, you talked about that. You did talk about that.
He looked like at first I thought, okay, we're chalking that up because he's just playing undisciplined. But later in the game, in the second half, he was, I would say, limping, but like just laying up on tackles. Like he's not well. And Drake Greenlaw is also one of those guys that's what the Robert Sala's all gas, no brakes, who can play very undisciplined. But he's not even close to 100% right now. He looked more than a step slow.
I agree. GTC Real says the fact that Kyle brings in a subservient rather than people who question him tells you will never win a chip. Wilkes over Fangio, real nice. Fangio hasn't looked great either this year, though. I mean, the Dolphins' defense has not looked very good at all. Very good at all. Now, Ramsey came back this week. He looked every bit as good as Ramsey's ever looked in his first game back, which is incredible. Says a lot about him. And we'll see how the defense goes, but his defense has not done good things over there. I do agree with your point, though, that he clearly was choosing somebody that he felt like he could kind of dictate how things would go, was not willing to turn the defense completely over to a guy like Fangio. And maybe that does tell you something about Kyle. Twisted Clown says, if this was with Trent and Debo, I would be scared. Twisted, I am scared, or scared, as you said. And the reason that I am is because this whole team, everything is built on everybody being healthy. But the people you're relying on being healthy are guys that consistently miss multiple games every single season. So expecting that every single weapon is going to be there for the final 9 weeks as you try to make this push into the playoffs, I think is wishful thinking. I just do. I think it's wishful thinking. So, whether it's Trent, Debo, Kittle, CMC, what have you, likely you're going to be missing a weapon for another game or two throughout the season. And if you can't figure it out now, why would you figure it out then? So we'll see. Adrian says, D looks like they're trying to play harder, but not play better or smarter. Leads to injuries. When run CMC doesn't work, where is your scheme, Kyle? They haven't ran the ball actually very effectively themselves the last few weeks. Silverback says, John and Kyle knew to extend contracts. 7th rounder to make up for the trade debacle. Oof.
Let's be honest. Like, this Silverback's right. Like, these dudes, let's be honest, man. Like
them.
And I like Kyle. And I love Kyle, actually. And I also think that this is, man, they're laughing all the way to the bank right now. Like, let's be honest. Like, this is a meltdown. This team is, let's put it into context. After the show, I'm going to go statistically break this all down. Like, this defense right now, from a 5-0 start, is historically bad. I'm going to show you that. Like, I'm going to write an article too. Like, it's so bad right now that I don't know if it matters who you're playing. If it's PJ Walker, if it's the Minnesota Vikings without Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook, if it's
Joe quite Burrow, frankly, the Bengals almost could have put up 40 today. They really could have.
Should have.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's not good. Bass Spokane Niner says, would fresh eyes on this offensive scheme help? Get an OC. Thoughts? Kyle will never, ever, 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 ever do that unless he's forced to by ownership. Dave says, I would never curse at you, Jesse. I know, Dave. I appreciate you. Michael says, Kyle, Lynch, and Bosa disappeared after getting paid. Bosa had some good moments today. They didn't lead to sacks for him, but they led to sacks for Armstead. He's definitely not playing up to his contract. That I agree with, but we'll see how things play out. It is tough, though. I mean, again, paying a defensive end like they're a quarterback when any defensive end by themselves can be taken out of a game and game planned around makes it a really tough pill to swallow. It does. So we'll see long term how it works. Dave says, I love that you know us and that I'm not a Kyle fan. Brother, all my regulars, I know a big chunk of you and what you guys prefer, don't prefer, and what you guys have said. I appreciate all the support. Trust me. What's up, bud?
I got a question. Is in one quarter of play in the NFL, is 11 for 11 for 120 yards, averaging exactly 11 yards a pass and 2 touchdowns? Is that good?
Yeah,
is that elite?
I think so. I would say that's elite. Why? What's happening?
Oh, it's Justin Herbert. I mean, I look. Hey, I've been told. Look, Brock Purdy's clearly better than Justin Herbert. Clearly better. And any of you people that have been sitting there hedging, hemming, hawing, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but woulda. You guys, you know what? I tell you what. The fact that you would look at this and go, recency bias, this just happened 5 minutes ago. But I mean, he's only 11 for 11 for 11 yards a pass. I mean, it's like the trifecta and 100, 2 touchdown passes, 151.7 rating. It's just the Bears. Exactly. It's just the Bears. Herbert's a bum. Absolute bum. I want 3 turnovers for my quarterback when it matters. Jesse, how dare you? I'm going to tell you this right now. And I got to go because I just found out my sister's going to go into labor right now. Really excited for it. This is going to be my out here. I got to go spend time with my kids for the first time all day. I just want to say, Jesse, I love you, but brother, I mean, come on now. The fact that you picked Justin Herbert over Brock Purdy.
I know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know.
Let's go after dark. After dark.
I'm a bum.
Jesus.
Well, you got to get going. So I was going to pull the overlay off. Otherwise, it would cover me in a weird way. So.
Well, hey, I'm out of here. But hey, love you.
Appreciate you, David. We'll talk soon, man. Later. The great David Lichty. All right. Dave Barclay says, does Grant delay his instant reaction for you? No, nor would I ever ask him to. It just happens to work that way. Brother Bob says, David crapping on Brock Purdy. Stop, please. No, don't. Oh, my gosh. All right. Here's the deal. We're going to have 2 weeks, probably some trades, maybe a firing, and a lot to talk about as we head into this bye week. This week is going to be intense. I would say this week is not going to be for the faint of heart. So for you 49er fans that don't like any negativity from anybody, I would stay away from all content, all radio, all sports talk, period. This is not going to be the week for you. I am not going to try to be overly negative by any means, but I am going to be real with my thoughts on this team. I cannot control my hosts and their thinking and what they're going to say, but as much as I love having you around, if that's not what you want to hear for the next week or two, I would understand bowing out. I get it until the 49ers win again, because I think there's going to be a lot of tough conversations coming up this week. So be prepared for those. It's not going to be easy by any means. Twisted Clown says, I'm only here when we lose. It's my therapy. Well, I appreciate that. You guys are my therapy when we lose, because without this show, I'm going to be real with you. Without this show and this outlet immediately after a loss, I go into the rest of the week feeling at least okay, knowing that I have the outlet to talk. I hope that vice versa for you guys, it's an outlet for you as well. Because before this, oh, dude, I would have been hot for the next 2 weeks. I would have been pissed for the next 2 weeks. But now I have this outlet. You guys have an outlet, hopefully, and can get over losses in a much more productive fashion and move on with your life. But I'm lucky to have it. And I appreciate each and every one of you for supporting the way that you do. I will have a show for sure on Tuesday afternoon. It's also Halloween, so maybe not that night. I might have a show tomorrow. I don't know. This week's going to be crazy. We'll see how it goes. I appreciate all of you for supporting. Get over to Grant's channel. I'm sure he's about to go live. Appreciate all of you. Have a great night. Peace.